Welcome back to S&S Grills, everybody. My name is Mike from the Everyday Barbecue YouTube channel, and I have got a rich and delectable recipe for you today. Smoked pork belly burnt ends, and it's coming up right now. Once again, welcome back to the channel, everybody. We really appreciate your support. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please consider doing so. And one more note, I'll have all the details for today's recipe down in the description box. Now, without any further ado, let's get into this awesome recipe. I have here a skinless pork belly, and we are just going to cut this into about 1.5 to 2 inch squares. You'll want to cut these into those sizes because these will render throughout the cook. So something about this size is going to be perfect. And don't get too wrapped up in this, just eyeball it. Anything close is going to be good enough. So these are all cut up. It's time to apply a thin layer of oil and then our seasoning and our salt. Just want to get these coated. Next, we're going to be applying some kosher salt because I'll be using a combination of our Not Just for Beef rub and our Rockies rub in this recipe. Those are both salt-free, so we have to start with some kosher salt. Real quick, I just want to mention, most people when they think pork belly, they think bacon and they think salty, but keep in mind that this is not cured, so this can take a good amount of salt. Now we just want to get that salt worked in. Next, we'll apply our rubs. I'm going to start with a coating of Rockies rub. Again, you can be very generous with these because there is no salt in either of these rubs. Now the Not Just for Beef rub. I love that peppery flavor in this rub. Really stands out in any barbecue recipe. And that's it. Step one is just that easy. Now let's get these transferred onto a wire rack. That's going to make transport on and off the cooker and in and out of the house really, really simple. Now that I have these transferred onto a tray, just for good measure, just gonna make sure they're all covered very generously. Now you can also see I left a small gap in between each burnt end here. The reason why I'm doing that is I want to leave space for the air and the smoke to travel in between. That's just gonna give us all the more crust and all the more flavor in our end result. Now that these are ready for the cooker, it's time for the cooker to get ready for these. So I'm gonna meet you outside and show you exactly how to set up the slow and sear kettle for today's cook. I'll see you there. All right, we're out at the slow and sear kettle. I just want to show you how we're going to get this set up. I am monitoring temperatures today with a remote thermometer that I ran through the probe port, and I also have the drip and griddle in place to help catch all those drippings and make for easy cleanup. Here in my slow and sear, I have about 15 coals banked against one side. We're gonna go ahead and light these with a fire starter. Now once you have your fire starter lit, just go ahead and put a few coals around it just to make sure that they start. While we're waiting for that to get going, if you're wondering why we just start a few coals banked on one side, this is a good way if you're new to using this setup, to using the slow and sear. This is a great way to keep from overshooting temperatures. So we're gonna dial in our initial cooking temperatures, which are gonna be 225 to 250 degrees Fahrenheit, by getting this first small set of coals lit. Once we have that dialed in, we're gonna add the rest of our coals to fill in the slow and sear. This will help keep us from overshooting our target temperatures. So now we just wanna give this a couple minutes for these coals to get going. Now we are gonna be cooking with water today as well, so I'm gonna go ahead and fill this water reservoir with hot water. Having water in the water reservoir for these low and slow cooks will help promote moisture. That moisture will help the smoke adhere to the meat, which is going to be really good for flavor and outstanding for bark building. A couple minutes has gone by. I can see these coals are starting to catch. I'm going to go ahead and put our lid on now. And we are going to open our vents all the way. Now I'm using the top vent, and then I'm using the smoke hole as my lower vent. The smoke hole really helps on these low and slow temperature cooks to just dial in precise temperatures. So I'm also gonna have that wide open throughout this warm-up process. So my cooker just hit 160 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm now starting to choke back my vents until I get them dialed in perfectly. Now here's what my final vent settings look like, but keep in mind there are variables with this. So just a few more minutes has gone by. I did go ahead and add the rest of these coals. Our temperatures are dialed in. I'm gonna sprinkle some nice apple chips here on top. For this cook, you'll just wanna go with a sweet wood, like a cherry or an apple. Now it's time to get these pork belly burn ends on. While we were getting this cooker preheated, you can see that these really absorb that rub. So let's get this lid on. So we're just gonna keep an eye on these until they develop a beautiful bark, and it'll be time for the next step. I'll bring you back then. About 2 hours and 10 minutes has gone by. This cooker has run really solid, just under 250 the whole way, and these burn ends look incredible. Let me show you. Whenever you're doing any barbecue recipe that involves wrapping or braising, the very most important step is to make sure that you have a set bark on whatever protein it is that you're cooking. You can scratch the bark here on these burn ends and it does not move. These are ready for the braise. I now have these in a foil pan. Let's go ahead and add all our braising ingredients. I'm gonna start by placing some chunks of butter here. We're gonna add some warmed barbecue sauce. A generous amount of brown sugar. Some maple syrup. And this last one is optional. If you want to add a little bit of heat, just go ahead and add your favorite hot sauce. Now we just need to get all this worked in together. And there we go. We just want to get everything coated nicely. Now we're just going to get some foil on top of this pan and get it back on the cooker to finish tenderizing and soak up all these incredible flavors. Okay, so 90 more minutes has gone by. I just temped these out. They're breaking 205 and they are as tender as can be. Now for the last stage of this cook, we're gonna remove the foil, which I've already done, and just let this set up for about 20 minutes or so. Then I'll platter these up and I'll see you for the taste test. We are back inside, and I just wanted to recap this really quick before we go into the taste test. The total cook time for this is going to be right around 4 to 4.5 hours, depending on how big you cut these. The first portion of that, 2 hours, is when you're developing your crust. About another 90 minutes of braise time, and about 20 to 30 minutes of taking that foil off and just letting everything set up. Then you can serve this up on a platter just like this. So now it is time for the taste test, and I have been looking forward to this for a few hours now. Just take a look at how beautiful that is, and we're going to be able to pull this right apart. Just look at that. All right, cheers everybody. Oh my goodness. This is way out of the park good. I mean, I can't even put this into words. Hold on a second. Let me see if this next bite will help me. So when it comes to barbecue, this is one of the most delectable and incredible recipes that you'll ever make. And that's why when you do it, it's important to go over the top, just like we did on this video. We've got a beautiful crust, all those flavors from those rubs, that nice pepperiness. The hot sauce comes through, we get the brown sugar, the butter just smooths everything out. And this is a 10 plus. I can't think of anything else you can do with barbecue that's gonna be better than this recipe. So listen, thank you very much for hanging out with me today. We really appreciate your support. Leave me a comment below, let me know what you thought about this recipe. And don't forget, till next time, 2 zones are better than 1. And I will see you on the next video.